The hall of stars inside the Zyrene palace shimmered with blue crystal lights. The smell of rare flowers filled the air. Aliens from different worlds stood silently as the royal announcer spoke. Princess Solara of the Zyrene Empire. Your guardian has arrived. Silada, sitting on her high throne, raised an eyebrow. A guardian? I need no guardian. Her father, Emperor Volzareth, stepped forward. It is a gift from the Human Republic, a sign of their loyalty to our alliance. Sighed, annoyed. Let us see this, ... gift. The doors opened. A man walked into tall, quiet, wearing worn-out metal armor that had seen many battles. He had short brown hair, a scar near his jaw, and calm gray eyes. His name was Lieutenant Caleb Ward. He stood before her and bowed. Princess Solara, I am honored to protect you. Solara tilted her head. She had expected a tall warrior in golden armor, or someone with grand titles. Not this, simple human soldier. She leaned close to her maidservant and whispered, "This is the best they could send." Caleb heard it, but his face stayed calm. She stood and walked around him slowly. Your armor has scratches. You smell like sweat and oil. Where are your medals, human? I do not wear medals, Caleb replied softly. Then why were you chosen? She asked sharply. I do not know, he said. Perhaps because I do not speak much. Or because I do not run from danger. Some of the nobles around her chuckled. Solara crossed her arms. You will stay in the outer quarters. Speak only when spoken to. Do not follow me unless I command it. Caleb bowed again. As you wish, princess. The days that followed Caleb followed his duties exactly. He stood silently during royal processions. He guarded her door every night without complaint. He trained with the palace guards but never boasted. He ate alone in the kitchens. He never argued when Solara ignored him at first. Solara enjoyed mocking him. When he stood in the rain for hours, she laughed, "You are not waterproof." When he cleaned his weapons in silence, she said, "Do you polish your toys more than your mind?" But Caleb never reacted. One day, during a palace stroll, a noble from the Hydrox race asked, "Why do you keep the human near you, princess? Is he your pet?" Solara smirked. "Perhaps. He listens better than my hounds." Caleb stood right behind her but said nothing. His eyes just scanned the garden ahead. That night, he stood outside her chamber as always. But inside Solara felt something strange. A small flicker of guilt. She shook it off. He is just a human, she told herself. The Banqueta Grand Banquet was held in honor of the alliance between Earth and Zyrene. Leaders from many worlds came. Solara wore a glowing dress of silver. Light. She shined like a star. Caleb stood near the wall, his armor dull but clean. During the speech, Solara walked onto the stage. She spoke with pride about her empire, her people, and the future. Then someone asked, "And what of your new human guardian?" She smiled wickedly. "Ah, yes, the human. Loyal, quiet, a fine wall decoration." Laughter filled the hall. "Sometimes, I wonder if he's even alive inside that helmet," she added.
Laughing.
The camera showed Caleb. He remained still, expression calm. More laughter. After the banquet ended, Solara walked past him and whispered, "Did that bother you, human?" He replied softly, "No, princess." She rolled her eyes and left. That night, the next morning, Solara woke up and noticed something odd. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. She opened her door. No one stood guard. Her guards always took shifts, but Caleb was always the one there during. The night she stepped outside, his armor stood neatly by the wall, clean, folded, empty. On top of it, a small device. A simple human communicator. It blinked once and played a message in his voice. "I served with honor. Protected without complaint. But if I am not wanted, I will not stay." That was all. Solara blinked. What? She stood there, holding the communicator in her hand. She should have been relieved. He was gone. No more boring human soldier, but instead, her chest felt tight. The search the next hours were full of confusion. No one had seen him leave. No ship logs showed his escape. "Contact Earth," she ordered. A reply came from a human general. "Lieutenant Caleb Ward has resigned. He is no longer under military command. Destination unknown." Solara stared at the screen in silence. Her maid whispered, "Should we replace him, Princess?" Solara didn't answer. She looked at the communicator again, then at the empty armor, then at the hallway where he always stood. The palace felt different without him. Every guard noticed it. Every servant noticed it. Even the advisors whispered about the missing human, but Princess Solara said nothing. She kept walking through the golden halls with her usual proud steps. She gave orders, sat on the throne, and attended council meetings. But something in her eyes had changed. She still remembered the small message he left behind. "I served with honor. I protected without complaint. But if I am not wanted, I will not stay." It echoed in her mind. The new guards to replace the human, the palace brought in elite Zearine guards. They wore shining armor and had long energy spears. They stood straight, saluted perfectly, and obeyed every word she said. But none of them stood as still as Caleb. None of them felt ... real one day. As she walked through the royal gardens, two of the new guards followed closely. Too closely. "Your distance," she snapped. They nodded and stepped back. She frowned. Caleb always kept the perfect space. Never too far, never too close. He never had to be told. Something missing at breakfast. She sat at the long table. The chair behind her was empty. That chair used to be his station. He never sat. He just stood there, arms behind his back, watching everything. Solara picked at her food. "Your Highness," said Minister Thal, "the human seems to be missed." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean only that?" He brought a calm to the palace. His presence made others feel safe. "He was just a soldier," she said. "A rare one." The minister replied quietly. She said nothing. News from the stars that week. Disturbing reports came in. Zearine scouts had spotted unidentified ships moving near the outer borders. They weren't Earth ships. Didn't match any ally signatures. Solara sat in the war room, frowning at the star maps. "Do we know who they are?" "Possibly the Zern Dominion," said Admiral Reth. "They have been silent for years, but they may be preparing something." The Zern were an old enemy, cruel, shadowy, and patient. Solara leaned back. Her fingers tapped. The table. Caleb had once mentioned them. He had fought them before. The guilt grows that night. Solara walked into her chamber and saw the empty armor again. It still sat near the door. She hadn't ordered it removed. She sat beside it and placed her hand. On the chest plate, it was cold. She remembered how he stood there during storms. When she was sick, when she shouted at him, man, never once did he speak back in anger. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Why did you leave so quietly, human?" She thought about his eyes. Calm. Sad. Strong. Had she really hurt him that much? The records the next morning, Solara ordered something strange. "Bring me the human service file," she told the military council. They looked confused but obeyed. His file arrived in a sealed black case. She opened it alone. What she saw made her breath catch. Caleb had served in 3 major wars. He had saved an entire research station from pirates. He had stood alone against Zern attackers during a failed peace talk, holding the line until evac. Ships could escape. He had lost his unit once. His best friend died in his arms. But he never left the battlefield. There were medals. Dozens of them. He simply never wore them. "He is a ghost on the battlefield," one general had written. "He stands when no one else can." Solara stared at the last report. Quiet, calm, loyal to the end. But perhaps too used to being unwanted. Her throat tightened. Danger comes close 2 days later. She visited an agriculture colony. For a public event, she stood before crowds, smiling, waving. Her guards formed a ring around her. Then it happened. Boom. An explosion shattered the edge of the platform. People screamed. Blaster fire rained from the rooftops Cern Assassin's had. Arrived. Her guards panicked. Some fired wildly, others pushed her behind a wall. But their formation broke. She was exposed. A Zern soldier leaped down, blade in hand. Solara raised her energy pulse, but her hands trembled. She fired. Missed. The Zern raised his weapon too. Strakened. Suddenly, someone else tackled him from behind. A Zairene farmer. Just a brave civilian, but the man was cut down instantly. Solara stared in horror. Blood, smoke, chaos. Her heart pounded. She escaped with help. That moment haunted her. Back in the palace, her face was pale. I could have died, she whispered to herself. Then she remembered something Caleb had said during one of the few times they spoke in war. The strongest protection is not armor. It's the will to stand for someone else. Looking back, she looked at his empty armor again. I mocked you for being plain, she said softly, but you were stronger than all of them. She walked to the window. Stars shined in the night sky. Where are you now, Caleb Ward? She pressed her hand to the glass. The decision that night. She made a choice. Solara called for her personal ship to be prepared. Quietly, no public notice. She would find him herself. Not as a princess, but as someone who wanted to make things right. She wore a simple cloak. No crown, no royal dress. Only a heart full of regret and hope. As her ship rose from the palace tower, her eyes stayed locked on the stars. Somewhere out there, a human soldier walked alone, and she would find him. Solara's ship flew quietly through deep space. No royal escorts, no guards, just her and a small pilot team. She had given one order: find Caleb Ward. They searched colony after colony, planet after planet. Sometimes they found a clue. Human soldier passed here last week. Someone would say, quiet man, helped fix our comms tower. Or, he stopped bandits from raiding our supply ships. Then he left. Didn't even ask for payment. The trail was faint, but it was real. Solara followed it with growing determination. Meanwhile, on a dusty moon near the edge of the galaxy, a small colony called Red Rock Haven stood in silence. It was a forgotten, place-damaged buildings, broken tech, and families barely surviving. Pirates and criminals roamed nearby. No protection, no law, until a human arrived. He came in a small shuttle, carrying only a pack and a few tools. He didn't say much. He just started fixing things. He repaired water pumps to reinforce their storage units. When raiders came, he stood with the people. That man was Caleb Ward. Caleb's life without the Princess Caleb didn't wear his armor anymore. He worked with his hands. He helped people rebuild walls and install solar shields. At night, he sat by a fire and stared at the stars. He didn't speak of the Zairene Empire, or the royal halls, or the princess who laughed at him, but her voice still lived. Somewhere in his memory, do you polish your toys more than your mind? It used to hurt. Now, he tried to forget. Back in the Zairene Empire, dark news spread fast. The Zern Dominion had returned. Their ships were spotted near several systems. One colony had gone silent. No distress signal, no survivors. The royal court met in emergency sessions, without Caleb. Solara's absence became more dangerous. Whispers filled the palace. She left to find a human. Our princess left us during a crisis. She chased a soldier into space. But the emperor knew something others didn't. He had seen change in his daughter's eyes. She's not just chasing a man, the emperor said quietly. She's chasing something she lost and wants back. Solara finds him her ship. Landed on Red Rock Haven in silence. Solara stepped out in her gray cloak. Dust blew in the wind. Children played near the old market. Farmers stacked crates of dry fruit. Then she saw him. Caleb. He was helping an old man fix a fuel pipe. He wore plain clothes, sleeves rolled up, face smeared with grease. Her heart skipped. He hadn't changed, and yet he had. There was a quiet peace around him now, but also a sadness. She walked closer. Caleb, He turned slowly. When he saw her, his expression didn't change. He just stood up, wiped his hands, and said, "Princess." The conversation, they sat by the edge of a rock wall as the sun set over the hills. Solara looked down. "I followed your trail." Caleb didn't speak. "I came too. Apologize," she said, "for how I treated you, for not seeing you, for using you as a symbol." "You didn't need to," he said simply. "I wanted to." The silence stretched between them. She looked at him again. "Why did you leave?" "You know why?" "I do," she whispered, "but hearing it matters." He finally looked at her. "Because I gave you everything I had, and I was still a joke to you." Her chest hurt. "I was wrong," she said softly. "You were the only one who truly protected me. You were the only one who stood for me without asking anything in return." Caleb stared at the sky. "What do you want now, Princess?" "Ah, want you to come back?" Before he could answer, alarms blared across Red Rock Haven. A local unit shouted, "Zern ships detected for incoming destroyers. No defense fleet, take cover." Panic spread. Families ran into bunkers. Armors grabbed old rifles. Some screamed. Others froze. Caleb stood up fast. Solara did too. "They followed me," she said, guilt washing over her. "They knew I left the palace. I've put this colony in danger." Caleb grabbed his gear. "No time for guilt. Let's get these people safe." The defense of Red Rock Haven, there were no soldiers. Only miners, farmers, and a few broken drones. Caleb took charge. "You secure the east wall. You get the children underground. Use anything that can be turned into cover." Solara joined him. "I can fight." He looked at her, "Then fight beside me." Together they stood on the edge of the colony as the Zern shuttles landed. Tall, armored aliens marched out. Their weapons glowed with blue flame. Caleb picked up a railgun. "Let's see if they bleed." The battle began. A princess changed Solara fought like never before. She used her pulse daggers and hit fast, sharp and smart. She protected 2 children with her shield drone. Ow! She took a hit to the shoulder but kept fighting. Caleb never left her side. He moved like water. Every shot counted. Every move had purpose. The people followed them. The Zern attackers were pushed back bit by bit. Victory and truth. After 2 hours, the last Zern shuttle exploded. The colony was safe. People cheered. Solara fell to her knees, exhausted. Caleb helped her up. "You okay?" he asked. She smiled weakly. "I think I understand now." He looked confused. "What it means to protect. Even when no one sees you. Even when they laugh. You knew that all along." He didn't answer, but his eyes softened. A simple question. The next morning, Solara stood beside her ship. Caleb stood with her. "I must return to the palace," she said. "But I don't want to go alone." Caleb said nothing. "I came too." "Ask you something," Caleb warned. He raised an eyebrow. She smiled, small and honest. "Will you return? Not as a soldier, not as my guard, but as the man I failed to honor." Caleb looked at the people waving goodbye, then at the hills behind, then at her. He gave a small nod. "Yes, Princess." The journey back to the Zerian Empire was quiet. Solara sat in the cockpit beside Caleb. The stars passed by slowly outside the window. Neither spoke much, but the silence was not cold. It was calm, like the air between 2 people who no longer needed to speak to be understood. Caleb looked different now. Not just his clothes or the dust from Red Rock Haven, but something inside. He was no longer just a soldier, and Solara was no longer just a princess. They had both changed, and the galaxy was changing too. Back at the palace, the return of the princess was a surprise. She had left in secret after all. Now she was back with a human by her side. Guards bowed. Ministers stared. And the emperor smiled faintly. "She has learned what words cannot teach," he whispered to his aide. Solara walked through the golden halls with her head high. Her wound from Red Rock was healing, but the memory of the battle stayed fresh in her heart. Caleb followed behind her, not as a servant, not as a shadow, but as an equal. Some nobles whispered. He returned, The human came back with her? What is happening to tradition? But others saw something different. Strength and unity. The council meeting that night, the Royal War Council gathered in the main chamber. High-ranking Zyrine leaders sat around the glowing map table. The Emperor, the Admirals, the Science Lords all looked serious. The Zern Dominion had begun attacking colonies along the borders. Ships destroyed, cities burned. People taken. Admiral Reth stood and pointed at the map. They're not just raiding. They're testing us, preparing for something bigger. Solara stepped forward. They are coming for us. I saw them. Fought them. Red Rock Haven barely survived. And who defended it? Asked one old minister with a sneer. You're human. Caleb stood at her side. Yes, Solara said proudly. He defended it. He led the people. He fought when trained soldiers ran. The room fell silent. The Emperor spoke next, then let him lead again. The armor reefer guide in the days that followed, preparations for war began. Fleet commanders called in ships. Engineers checked weapons. Civilians were warned. But in a quiet chamber deep below the palace, a special project began. A new armor was being made for Caleb. Solara visited the forge herself. She worked with engineers, selecting the best alloys from both human and Zyrine. Tech. The armor would be light but strong, smooth but sharp. And the symbol on the chest? Not a flag, not Earth, not Zyrine, but a simple star and shield, presenting both. When it was done, she presented it to him. I had it made for someone I respect, she said. Caleb ran his hand over the armor. It's beautiful. Don't need to wear it for me, she said. I'm not, he replied. I'll wear it for those who cannot protect themselves. The Solara and Caleb stood before the council with a bold idea. If we let the Zern come to us, Caleb said, they will strike where we're weakest. Solara nodded. But if we draw them into a trap, we can crush their fleet in one move. They shared the plan. Bait the Zern with a vulnerable-looking convoy, then attack them with cloaked ships and plasma nets. It was risky, but it was bold. And it was human. After a long pause, the Emperor said, let it be done. The calm before battle, the night before the battle, Solara stood on a balcony outside her chambers. The stars were quiet, but her heart was loud. She felt nervous. Behind her, she heard soft footsteps. Caleb, he stood beside her, dressed in his new armor. The silver lines glowed faintly under the moonlight. You're not afraid? She asked. I've been afraid before, he said, but I don't let it stop me. She looked at him carefully. You stood beside me when I didn't deserve it. Why? He gave a small smile. Because sometimes you fight not for what someone is, but for what they could become. She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, I don't want to lose you, Caleb. He looked into her eyes. Then don't. The battle begins the next day. The fleet launched. Solara commanded from the royal flagship. Caleb led the ground units from a strike cruiser. The convoy moved slowly through the stars, just as planned. It looked weak. Easy prey, the Zern took. The bait 5 warships dropped out of hyperspace. Black and sharp like blades, their cannons charged. Fighters swarmed forward, but the Zyrine-cloaked ships were already in position. Now, Solara shouted, energy nets dropped. Plasma cannons fired. Human-designed torpedoes hit like thunder. Caleb's voice came over the comms. Target their engines. Leave no path for escape. The human way the Zern were fierce, but they had not expected human tactics. Traps, feints, sacrifice plays, ambushes. From below asteroid fields, Caleb led a strike team into one of the Zern flagships. They fought through corridors, room by room. He moved like lightning. His armor took hits, but he kept going. Finally, he reached the control room, and there he sent a message to the rest of the Zern fleet. You thought humanity was soft? You thought we would kneel? But we are the fire between stars. Leave this galaxy, or be buried in it. The message was broadcast across the sector. Some Zern ships fled, others were destroyed. Aftermath. Battle was over. The Zern were defeated for now. Solara stood at the head of the palace steps, facing the crowd. Beside her, stood Caleb Armor. Shining in the sunlight, she raised her voice. This human once mocked, once scorned stood when others ran. He led where others doubted, showed me what honor truly means. The crowd was silent. Then the Emperor stepped forward and placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. Today, you are no longer just a soldier. You are a guardian of the Empire. People erupted in cheers. That night later, in a quiet garden behind the palace, Solara and Caleb sat alone. No crowns, no armor, just stars above. Will you leave again? She asked. Caleb looked at her. Will you scorn me again? She said gently. Never again. He smiled. Then I will stay. The war was not over, but the galaxy had changed. The Zern Dominion had been pushed back. Their main fleet was scattered. Worlds that once lived in fear now raised flags of hope, but something even greater had changed within the Zyrene Empire. The people began to see humans differently, not as lesser beings, but as allies, fighters, friends. And at the heart of it all stood Princess Solara and Caleb Ward. Side by side, a new beginning. Solara stood in the royal garden one morning, watching the wind carry petals across the stone path. She wore no crown, just a simple robe. She liked days like this, when things felt real. She heard familiar footsteps. You walk like a soldier, she said without turning. Caleb stepped beside her, smiling. That's because I still am one. She turned to him. You're more than that now. He raised an eyebrow. Am I? You're a symbol, she said, of what it means to stand firm, even when no one stands with you. He looked away. I never wanted to be a symbol. I know, she said softly, but you became one anyway. Voices of the people. As days passed, more messages arrived from across the galaxy. From the miners of Red Rock Haven, tell the human he saved our lives. We've built a statue of him by the well. From human colonies, he made us proud. We feel seen by the Empire. From a group of young Zyrene cadets, we want to be like him. Solara read these messages aloud to Caleb one evening. He sat on the palace wall, looking out over the glowing city. Feels strange, he said. What does? She asked. To be remembered. The council's offer a week later, the High Council called for a special meeting. Solara and Caleb both attended. The Emperor stood in front of the gathered leaders. Our empire needs voices that understand both sides. Zyrene and human. The hall was silent. The Emperor turned to Caleb. We offer you a position, royal advisor and guardian of the air. Murmurs filled the chamber. A human as advisor. Caleb looked at Solara. Her eyes were steady, supportive. I accept, he said. The Festival of Stars. Soon after, the Empire held its annual Festival of Stars, celebrating peace, unity, and survival. This year it was different. Humans were invited. To the palace for the first time, traders, soldiers, diplomats, even children. The grand plaza was filled with lights, laughter, and music. Solara walked through the crowd in a silver dress that shimmered like starlight. Beside her walked Caleb, now in royal armor, redesigned. To reflect both Zyrene elegance and human strength, people from every species came to greet them. A child tugged Solara's robe. Princess, is he your knight? She smiled. He's more than that. Under the stars that night, after the celebration, Solara and Caleb walked alone to the highest tower of the palace. The stars above were bright and the sky was clear. She leaned on the railing, quiet for a long time. Then she said, I used to think being royal meant standing above everyone. He nodded. And now? Now I know, she said. It means standing with them. She looked at him. You taught me that. He gave a small smile. You learned it yourself. She reached out and touched the side of his armor. Never ask for a reward, not even thanks. I didn't need one, he said. Well, she said gently, I want to give you one anyway. A question unspoken. There was a pause. The wind moved through her hair. His eyes met hers. Solara, he said softly. Yes, I came here to protect you. But somewhere along the way, I began to care for more than your safety. She stepped closer, and I began to care for more than your duty. Another pause. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. You left once, she whispered. But now if I ask you to stay in it, as a soldier but as a man, would you? He looked at her, calm and honest. I'll stay, he said. Because I'm told to, but because I choose to. A new era begins the next day. The palace made an announcement. Not a royal wedding, not a political bond. Just this. The princess and her human guardian now walk the same path. Not by command, not by force, but by mutual respect. People cheered. Some cried. And across the stars, the message reached even the darkest corners. Hope had a new name. It was not just Solara, not just Caleb. It was the bond between two hearts from two different worlds, stronger than war, stronger than pride. Epilogue. Years later, the galaxy kept changing. The Zern would return one day, but so would the defenders of peace. Solara became. Queen Caleb remained at her side, not in her shadow, not above her, but always beside her. They built new alliances, protected more colonies, and helped both Zearine and humans grow stronger together. And every time a young officer asked Caleb, "How did you earn the princess's trust?" he would smile and say, "I didn't earn it. I waited for her to see what was already there." Final scene, one evening, Solara and Caleb stood again in the garden where they first spoke, without titles, without walls. She looked up at him. "You? Remember the day you left?" "Yes. I hated it then," she said. "But now, I'm glad you did." "Why?" "Because that was the day I stopped seeing you as a guard," she said, "and started seeing you as mine." He leaned closer. "Then I'm yours," she smiled. And under the stars, their journey that began with Scorn ended with quiet, unshakable love.